Hi, I'm going to apologize again up front for the poor sound quality. The earbuds with the mic, they've gone wonkies. I did uh, another video about that. I've already posted it. This headset, the mic is wonky, so I apologize. Anyway, to go on further into my cancer journey story, I have to back up uh, about 6 months to really drive home the point that the Lord was there paving the way for everything and preparing me. Talk about that in another video. He had me pretty well prepared for dealing with trials and tribulations when they come up, and that they are allowed for a purpose. Anyway, our family, our income at that time precluded qualifying for any type of, in California, we call it Medi-Cal. I believe the standard name for it is Medicaid. Anyway, but we never quite made enough combined income to really justify good insurance, and family was hardly ever sick. And if we ever went to the doctor, you just wrote a check. Anyway, there came a point where the cap on the financial qualification was raised for eligibility was raised slightly. Uh, I think it was the year before, or maybe it was 2014. I'm not sure. It's been a while. I'd have to go back and check on that. But I had been contacted by the county of Kern that we would qualify for that. And they were in the process of setting up people uh, with Medi-Cal. And by the end of the summer, I went through a telephone interview and it was approved right over the phone for the whole family. But enrollment in Quinn Family Health could take up to 30 days. I had made my phone call to my OBGYN, Dr. Lascano, to set up an appointment. He was seeing patients in Shafter several times a month, which is where we lived at the time. Years before that, he had told me that, yeah, it was probably a really good idea for me to have a hysterectomy. I believe the words collapse were mentioned, and there was also stress, incontinence, little issues there. So sooner the better. It obviously took several years. Once I was approved for the Medi-Cal, I made an appointment, went in, sit down, have a little chit chat with him there at Dr. Komin's office, and he answered all my questions. He was just a really, truly phenomenal doctor. He was compassionate, and oh, and he was funny. So we were discussing the procedure. He answered all my questions, and then we kind of laughed because I asked about excessive weight gain after procedure. I was concerned about it because there had reached a point where I had gained a lot of weight years before, and it just felt like it was taking forever to lose. And it took me probably about 2 years, and I did very healthy wise, and I lost close to 55 pounds. I had never been as heavy as I had been um, at my. I was like I didn't weigh this much when I was pregnant with all three of my kids. Um, anyway, I worked really hard for that, and I had back problems and arthritis, and I could barely walk. Um, so losing that weight. Oh look, medication alarm. Huh, those will go off. I apologize. Um, I worked really hard to lose the weight and get into really amazing shape. So yes, the idea of getting the weight back was a little worrying to me. Anyway, he looked at me because I said, "Well, my cat Rhiannon, who by then unfortunately had crossed the Rainbow Bridge," I said, "Oh, when I had her fixed, she gained a lot of weight." And he just looked at me and went, "Well, you're not a cat. I'm not spaying you." I went, anyway, we laughed. Anyway, it had come up the fact that I wasn't already enrolled in Kern Family Health, which is one of the Medi-Cal HMOs. in Flint County, and one I was familiar with. I'd been on it years and years and years before, when we first moved up to this area, when my kids were little. And so that's who I went with because they were local, and you know, had relatively good experience with them. And he said, "Well, we need to get this going." He felt like, "Yeah, this cannot be ignored. This can't be put off. This needs to be done." And I said, "Okay." And one of the clerks in the office, who I'm going to call her by name, so wherever she is now, because I now go to a different primary I have for years because I no longer live in Shafter. I live out in Bakersfield. Metropolitan Bakersfield population's like over 700,000 people. So when people say, "Don't tell people where you live," it's like, really? I'm sorry, it's a big place. Um, Tracy was wonderful. She researched everything. She came in and gave me the number and said, with Dr. Lascano, and they said, "You go home and make that phone call and ask for expedited enrollment." And I went, "Absolutely." And it was very far away. It was like 3 blocks away. I was on the phone all afternoon. I was bumped around, but then someone finally, I spent a lot of time in home. I was finally given this phone number for the ombudsman for California. Took me a little while, but I got through. And praise the Lord for the gentleman who assisted me. He took care of everything, and I mean, he was asking all the right questions, and he was toggling between me and my doctor's office, Dr. Lascano's office in Bakersfield, where his main office was. And then he comes back on the line and says, "Ma'am, you will be enrolled as of 12:01 a.m. tomorrow morning. I've let them know, don't bill the other appointment until the next day," or what. There's uh, logistics I knew nothing about. Um, anyway, so it was set up, and it took a little while though because Dr. Loscano had to keep sending over more and more files for the request to have the procedure approved by Kern Family Health, and I'm like, "I'm sorry, how much more do they need to know? I'm in my 50s. It's not like I'm using this stuff, okay? I mean, I do understand that our female organs, reproductive organs, do more than reproduce. They do lots of other things. I'm sorry, I'm tired. I didn't intend to go into hormonal balances and whatnot, but it really needed to be done. And yeah, please go ahead, take them." Once it was done, um, I had wonderful care. He set it up at that time it was San Joaquin Community Hospital. Now they call it Adventist Health Hospital in Bakersfield. Either way, I was very well taken care of. And I do remember that I was scheduled to check in at 5 a.m. And one of my pastors was going to, Pastor Hilary V. Wood, he's gone home to the Lord not that long ago. I miss him so very much. He was also very funny. he he had his own health problems. He walked with a cane, but I'll be dang, 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, he was downstairs in the waiting room, waiting to sit with me and my then husband to kind of fellowship and to pray. I really appreciated that. And after we were done chit chatting and having our prayer time, they called me and transportation picked me up, and yeah, I was very well taken care of. I've never had care at the hospital. Anyway, um, having all of that set up was so important because not long after I was released, because Dr. Lascano had to check me every few weeks, or, "Are you recovering and well, and everything is going well?" I also had my friend I mentioned, red dresses, issues, checking in on me, especially just after surgery. She said something to the effect of, "You're having this type done?" I said, "Yes, yes, I am." She goes, "You need to stay down and you must behave yourself. I know how you are." "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Because there are only a handful of stitches in there holding everything in. Those pop and everything's coming out your vajayjay." And I went, "Oh, yes, ma'am." Um, I don't take it easy well. Fortunately, my youngest son, who I call Peanut on here, he he was making sure I stayed down, and he made sure I had everything I needed. Anyway, once I was recovered to certain points, Dr. Lascano would say, you can start doing your walking now. I wasn't allowed to run before that. In fact, when we had that conference before the hysterectomy, he said, you're going to have to stop running. I went, what? He goes, well, I'm sorry. Do you want everything to drop to your knees? I went, no, no. So I was very sad. I had been released to do some walking and getting back up to where I'd be able to run again. And little by little by little, the day I said I was completely released from his care, you're good, you're good. I said, well, now that we have this medical insurance, this Medi-Cal family health setup, I think probably ought to do a mammogram. And he goes, do you have a lump? And I went, yes, I just found it. He just, he looked at us. And I had to say, anyway, he had me set up for the mammogram and the ultrasound. And that's what I will go on to talk about in the next videos. But little teaser, when I went in for the mammograms and the ultrasound, I remember sitting in the little waiting room. There's a waiting room specifically at Diagnostics. It's for women and their procedures and tests. And I'm sitting there praying, and Lord, I know this is in your hands. Door opens for the technicians to come out and call the patients. And when the door opened this one point, I looked up, and there's a lady from choir that I knew, a friend of mine, and I just went, wow. And it was like the Lord saying, it's just this gentle little reminder, I am with you. I'm not leaving you alone in this. And yeah, I needed that reminder. By the time they were done with the mammogram and then the ultrasound, I'm sitting in the ultrasound room cleaning up because of that gel they put all over your breasts. I did discuss this with my son last night. Can I say boob? I'm not sure. Okay, so breasticles, whatever. The, the ultrasound tech came back in when she was getting ready and she cleaned up, and she's okay. So the pathologist wanted me, and it was a Friday, wants to let you know that you're going to be getting a call from me on Monday because we have a mass on the right breast. And we're not sure about the one on the left. We're pretty for certain it was a cyst, but there was definitely a mass on the right side. And that was a really long week. It was a long weekend, but it wasn't. I went, okay, God's got this. I know. And lo and behold, yeah, I had that phone call for the biopsies to be. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that because that was a whole situation. Um, I'm not one who uses profanity, except in really extreme circumstances. Most of the time, I say things like fudge sickles and mother fluffy kittens, gosh darn it. I mean, I, in essence, swear like that. Who's that guy from The Simpsons? Okay, I've forgotten his name. But yeah, I mean, that's me. I don't, it's just not my thing. But I'm going to tell you something. We'll talk about that in the next video. It was really horrible. Anyway, thank you for coming along on this, talking about it in length, somewhat publicly for the first time in 11 years. I've always been pretty open. If people ask me, I had no problem talking about it. What do you want to know? I mean, I'm not unique per se. There are other women who are diagnosed with breast cancer. We each have a story that's unique. In fact, I believe I've already talked about that in that first little video I did. But putting it out there and talking about it in this type of form. My screen keeps going dark. I'm really sorry. Um, it may affect this, it might not. You know what? I don't know because I'm not tech savvy. Anyway, I I want to be able to provide this story for other women to or men who have sisters, brothers, wives, mothers, grandmothers, somebody who is going through this, have an understanding, um, to know a little bit, maybe get a little bit of support. In fact, I'm going to try to put together a list of resources. Um, Depending on what state or county you're in, that's going to take some research because pretty much I can tell you who to contact in Kern County, possibly California. But I'll do a little research and reach out and see if I can find resources for women to reach out to in order to get the testing, to have a support network. I know there are ones online, but sometimes in person is a little bit, well, personal. So there you go. Anyway, get a chance. Like, subscribe, share. I will talk to you all again in the next video. Thank you. God bless you all. Have a lovely and blessed day and evening. Bye bye.